Good afternoon, Miami. Welcome to the Miami-Dade Democratic Party podcast. Obviously, I am not Laura Kelly. Laura is, the chair is taking a couple of much needed, much deserved days to herself. My name is Sam Dorr. I'm your guest host today. I'm the secretary of the Miami-Dade Democratic Party. This will be an LGBTQ themed episode, as today is, of course, the last day of Pride Month. And in that vein, we have a really, really special guest today. We have the first out LGBTQ member of the City of Miami Commission, Commissioner Damian Pardo. Welcome, Commissioner. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you, Sam. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's get right into it. District 2 is the district you represent. Mm-hmm. Tell us where is it? Whom do you represent?
So District 2 starts basically around Morningside, which is the Upper East Side. It goes down, it captures Edgewater, downtown, Brickell, Grove, all of South Grove, almost to the Gibbles Waterway. So it's the whole coastline of the city of Miami. Yeah. It's large, it's diverse. You have Little Bahamas, you have the business district in the Grove. We also have the Omni CRA. So I also chair the Omni CRA. So we have about 35% of Overtown. We do a lot of work through Omni. So it's an exciting district. Yeah. Really is.
Excellent. So this is, of course, again, Pride Month.
Yes.
Last day of Pride Month. You are, again, the first out gay commissioner in the city of Miami's history, which is a little bit astonishing, but better late than never. Tell us a little bit, if you would, about your coming out story, your journey, how you got here to today.
Yeah, actually, my coming out story started with Anita Bryant. So I am that old. During Anita Bryant, I was about 13. And back then, we were referred to as just homosexuals or deviants or, anything along those lines. And in our car, my mom and I used to argue about it, and I would defend the homosexuals. So I think it just got to the point where she finally said one day, why do you keep defending are you a homosexual? And I couldn't lie to mom. So I said, yeah, I am a homosexual. And I think after she stopped crying a few weeks later, we started developing a relationship, which was a beautiful relationship. Those were not easy times to be gay, or to be a parent with a gay child, or to be a friend with a gay friend, because the moment you were associated with them. So my mom was amazing. She used to go to Dade Action PAC. Probably people don't recognize that organization anymore, but she would go to Dade Action PAC meetings, SAVE meetings. She led a prayer group where we had the ordinance, the human rights ordinance. She spoke in our defense and wanted to see the human rights ordinance passed.
That's incredible.
So yeah, I mean, that's the importance and the power of coming out.
Of course. So what kind of discrimination do you still face today as an out gay man, as a public figure, as an elected official?
I think it's like most marginalized communities. There's kind of dog whistles, and it's not as overt or blatant as we once saw it, but it's definitely there. Yeah. And even online, I get comments.
I'm sure.
Online that are
keyboard warriors.
Yeah, keyboard warriors that are very, just it's sad when you see those kinds of statements, but they're there.
They're there, right? So what would be your message to your constituents, to our LGBTQ community, this final day of Pride Month?
Listen, I think pride is different for everyone. It means different things to different people. But to me, what it most means is resilience. Yeah. Don't allow your path or your accomplishments or how far you may go to be defined by other people's prejudices. Keep in mind that you are strong, and you don't need to be accepted and applauded by people. It's great when they do, because it always feels good to feel welcomed and be a part of a community. Sure. But when they don't, just understand that's kind of the way it is in that moment, and you will do well, you will prevail, and over time these things will diminish.
Fabulous. So let's switch to City of Miami.
Yes.
There's been quite a bit of activity of late. There always is, but particularly these last few weeks. 287G. First of all, thank you for voting no on that. Give us an explainer on what it is, what it means for city residents, and what we can expect as a city and as a community moving forward.
So I think there's part of the discussion on 287G that really involves law enforcement and city kind of administration. And from their perspective, it's a contract like many other contracts where they are enforcing something on behalf of the federal government.
Yeah.
And some people get localized, specialized training. And so if you hear the police department talk about it or the administration talk about it, it's a question of liability.
Yeah.
It's a question of losing money. It's a question of, we have a great police department with trained people. There'll only be 3 or 4 people that will be trained in this regard. Officers will have to go to them whenever there's a 287G issue. It's not like Miami officers can just be on the street trying to enforce things as if they were ICE. A lot of people believe that's what it is, but that's really not what it is. Okay. It is people who have special training and designations who will be authorized to make certain decisions. So that's a big difference. 3 of my colleagues on the dais voted in favor, and I think their primary concern was retaliation, and retaliation against the city and retaliation against the residents of the city. And so that was their decision. For me, that decision, the decision to vote against, was much greater, because I think when you see these kinds of policies, they may start as administerial, but they really end up in bad places, because they're giving life to a climate that is really dangerous for us in the city of Miami. We are an immigrant city. We were built by immigrants. I also lived a time when the only discrimination I faced wasn't gay, it was for being Hispanic. And I remember vividly my mom and my grandmother having a conversation at Oliver in Coral Gables back then, and the cashier yelling to them. We were like 5th in line, but the cashier made it a point to yell at them to speak English. This is America. At that point, my mom left her cart. She took us and, we walked out, but she wasn't even talking to her or anyone else. It was my grandmother. So it was ugly in that way. And, we had the English only legislation in the city of Miami, which was another big battle. So to see us go back when we've come so far as a city, we are a diverse, diverse, ethnically diverse, geographically diverse in terms of the people who come here. Our economy is built by Europe, Latin America, the Caribbean. So this is a place where our global status comes from the definition of diversity and inclusion. So how, to give any kind of life to this idea that we're not, which, in the best case, that's all we're doing with 287G. In the worst case, we're actually infringing upon people's rights. And I do think there are situations where that will happen, which is another reason why I didn't support 287G. Plus, there's no coverage for liability to the city of Miami, in the sense that they're asking our certain officers to take on delegated responsibilities, but who's going to cover us if there's a mistake? There's no protection in any way, and it's just really bad policy.
You mentioned a regression, to think that there was an English-only policy in Miami, of all places, is rather stunning. So another huge issue facing the city right now is an effort you've led, called SR1, which would move city elections to even-numbered years, because almost nobody votes in odd-numbered years, as we see again and again. I know when I vote early, usually at Government Center, tumbleweeds are blowing through. There's nobody there.
No.
And it's a little depressing, because that's, I don't have to tell you, you and your commission colleagues are always elected with just a small handful of your constituents, not particularly democratic. Yet the other side's messaging is really resonating. I had another Democratic Party leader in another part of the state call me and say, I see you canceled your elections.
Yeah.
Care to clear this up?
Absolutely. First, let me make clear, the reason behind this is to boost voter participation. It's you could even argue that we're suppressing voters by having it on odd years. And this isn't something that's easy to do. There are people that have been trying to get this change in the city of Miami for decades. This was covered in our charter review 10 years ago. It was one of the things, being asked for. So when we realized that we actually had potentially 3 votes to get this done, we move forward. We're like, when you can take reform, you take it. You're not going to wait for the perfect, oh, let's wait another cycle, or even I wouldn't wait a day, a week, or a year if I know that we can get a certain reform done. There's been a lot of misinformation. I'll take the opportunity just to clarify a little bit. Please. We are not canceling an election. There is no election that's being canceled.
Cancellation.
There is an election in November of 2025. And in that election, people will have on the ballot the redistricting lawsuit, the settlement, which will be there for voting. We will have on the ballot, hopefully, lifetime term limits. Hopefully, we get Miami Marine Stadium on the ballot. So I'm sure all the ballot initiatives will be voted on in November of this year. What happened is the public officials were moved to 2026. And that's the only, whenever we make this reform, which I find ironic because a lot of these folks that are talking about canceling and these other issues, we're all in favor of this. And we're pushing for this year after year after year. When I knocked on doors, people asked me for it. We have thousands of petitions in Miami City Hall right now, more than people that voted for commissioners to be sitting at the table. We have probably around 5,000 or so have voted to make this change in the form of a petition. So we did polling on this. It's been polled by groups outside. We know that over 60% of the people polled, even, and I'll get to that in a minute, but even with the additional year issue, polled above 60%. So we know it's popular. We know people support it. But remember, we're in an election cycle. So anyone running for office, you're no longer running in a 10% voter turnout scenario. Now you're running in a 60% voter turnout scenario. So you may not even be electable anymore. So of course, there are a lot of angry people. There are a lot of people with a dog in the fight who are clinging their hat onto this idea that the voters didn't get a chance to vote, which ideally the voters would have had the ability to vote on this. However, given the situation in this context where we had the opportunity to pass it, I would not vote. I would, in order to give the voters what they want, you might actually undermine them by putting it to a vote, because by the time that time lapses, you may no longer have those 3 votes.
Right.
The additional year that the commissioners get and the mayor gets, doesn't matter when you do this reform, they're going to get an additional year. If we do it in 2005, they'll get an additional year. If we do it now, they're doing an additional year. So for the headlines that read, Miami commissioners are giving themselves an extra year, well, it's great clickbait. It's great, I guess, follower, you get more attention, more hits, but it's not true. The impetus behind this legislation was, let's get participation from 10% to 60%. I'll give you an example. City of Miami 2021 election, which was the mayoral, we had 14% turnout. 2024, which was a general cycle, we had 60, and we only had initiatives on there. We had no officials, only initiatives. We had 69% participation. That's huge. You can't. Plus, we saved millions of dollars over time. So I mean, it's a clear win-win-win, right, in every way. But again, there are folks that wanted to see it go a certain way. They have a dog in the fight, or they didn't feel like their voice was heard, or they really wanted it to go to a vote no matter what. I understand all of that, but this is a huge good thing for our community, and that's what I hope people take away from it.
So you mentioned lifetime term limits. If you could quickly explain lifetime versus just standard issue term limits. What's the distinction?
So right
there?
now, City of Miami has term limits, but those term limits are, for example, I can serve 8 years, and then I can go away for 4 years. Then I can come back and serve another 8 years, or I can wait 10 years and come back and serve another. So when I was knocking on doors a lot and talking to people, they kept saying, why do we see the same names in City of Miami? It's just the same names over and over. So we looked at City of Miami Beach. They had this initiative that went to the ballot, went to the voters. And again, this is a charter amendment. It's important for people to understand that. The charter does not require in the City of Miami that we send to the voters changing our election date. It's simply not required. It wasn't required in the City of Coral Gables or City of North Miami, and they all did it the same way through ordinance. It didn't go to the voters. It does require that to change the term limits, you've got to go to the voters. So what we're approving, hopefully on July 10th, is a lifetime term limit, which means You can serve 8 years during your lifetime, and that's it. You're done. You don't get to keep coming back. You can serve as mayor for 8 years, and that's it. You're done. You can't keep coming back. So the most you could serve the city of Miami is 16 years in your lifetime, and that's it. Then you got to go find. And then people say, well, don't you want a really good commissioner coming back? And I said, look, if you're a really good commissioner, you're going to mentor someone and you're going to create a path for someone else. And I will tell you, after 8 years of hard work and service, you're kind of burned out if you did your job right. I also like it because it gives you in your mind, if you get reelected, in your mind, you know, I've got this amount of time. I better do everything I can to leave the mark I want to leave, because that's all I got. And I think that's way better for government, better ideas, more innovation, different people at the table. It's a win-win-win, like we just talked about with SR1.
Right. So one more question about SR1. The Attorney General has said he'll bring legal action against it.
Yeah, that's a red herring. I mean, that whole thing was just a political ploy. If you notice, first of all, I think it's really interesting that a city commissioner asks the Florida Attorney General for an opinion, right? Instead of the city attorney. But anyway, that's the way it played out. So, you know, there's a backstory to all of that. And then everyone that reviewed those opinions, it was super clear that the city's within its legal right to do it. Of course, it'll be challenged. It'll probably, you know, have an expedited path, and there'll be a summary judgment. And I'm confident the summary judgment would be that the city of Miami is correct in its due course. But both letters that came out from the Attorney General came out right before our commission meetings.
Convenient.
Yeah, so it's politics.
Of course, always. So, as far what is the city doing? It's kind of shifting gears here. What is the city doing for neurodivergent residents? And
I think the city is very well positioned to now, not just on the neurodivergent issue, but on all issues of diversity. It's very well positioned for reform.
Great.
If you think about this, we have myself and Commissioner Gabella came in at the same time. We're both very open to reform. And now we have Commissioner Rosado, who is also very open to reform. So I think for the first time in the city of Miami, the stars have aligned where you have 3 commissioners that are very open to changes. And I'll say about that, there's 2 kinds of advocacy, at least the way I see it from this position and in the 35 years where I was an advocate. There is advocacy where you kind of use the carrot and stick, and, you know, if your commissioner does what you want, you praise them. If they don't, you hit them, beat them up and go write negative stuff. I don't know that that's productive. A lot of times I'll ask an advocate, so what have you passed? What legislation have you? And they've never passed anything. Right. They're just obstruction over here or, you know, doing this over there. And so I would encourage people, and there are a lot of good advocates that meet with our office, meet with staff, and we're working on some really great reform. I would encourage all the advocates in the city of Miami to line up with their commissioners and do the work and stop thinking that there's this, you know, boogeyman of, the developers and the corrupt people, and because that doesn't help us. That kind of plays into the clickbait and the, you know, all the other stuff. That doesn't help us as residents. What we need as residents are civic-minded folks who want to sit down, work through the issues, and also listen to the facts. Because I could turn blue in the face saying that we're not canceling an election, and it's still going to be out there, no matter what.
So what would you say as someone who is an elected official who unseated an incumbent, folks who are maybe looking to run for office, folks who are LGBTQ are looking to run for office? What would you say to them if they're thinking about running?
I would say to them, first, make sure you have a good sense of where you're at, what your community is, that you've done really good civic work to back it up, that you understand the area that you want to represent, and then understand what is the motivation. Why are you really? I got that question all the time, and it felt so disingenuous to answer it, because the way I was kind of forced to answer it was, well, because I want to see us do better. You know, our campaign was called "We Can Do Better Miami." But I would often say the actual story, which is I just got so mad at my existing representation after so many years. Nothing was done in my neighborhood. Nothing. I mean, there wasn't a major renovation in the park. There wasn't anything that we had been asking for. And at least in my district and others, I know people have said that they have not seen any of the changes, even at a minimal level, that they would like to have seen. Now, I don't want to say that the folks representing it didn't do. I'm sure they did, right? And that's all. I'm sure with me, lots of folks are going to say that too. But it gets to a point, as a person who is civic minded and who's done a lot of work in the community, where your temper and your anger gets to like, well, you know what? I can't just keep talking about this, because I was never the type to sit there and yell at a commissioner. I never saw any of that as constructive, but I was the type to pass a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So it gets to a point like, you know, if I want to see these things happen, then I've got to be the change. Sure. I've got to either shut up or be the change. Right. That's another thing I will tell people. You can do everything in the world. You can be a great advocate. You can knock on the door and ask for money 1,000,000 times, but there's nothing like being in that seat. Mm-hmm. When you're in that seat, now you do have the resources, the money, the power, in a sense, and people will listen to you. That blows my mind. Like, if I have something to say, people will listen to me. As an advocate on the other side of the, I have this great idea. Well, good luck, because like nobody, you know. So yes, fight for the seat. Just make sure you know why you're doing it. Make sure you understand the community you're representing, and then go all out. Understand it is an all out effort. You can't do it halfway. If you have even the smallest doubt, don't do it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So finally, 4th of July is this week. What fireworks can we expect from the City Commission in upcoming weeks and months?
There will be fireworks. There's a lot of political angles. You know, there's attention being drawn to the DDA. Mm-hmm. So that's a political kind of move that started with Commissioner Reyes. When Commissioner Reyes ran for mayor, Commissioner Carollo was going to run for mayor. Immediately, you know, the whole thing started with taking out line items and saying that they should be doing what they're doing. The organization I chair, Omni-CRA, was also hit. And for a while there, they weren't granting the extension of life. It was being upheld, and it's, we don't need it anymore. We should abolish Omni-CRA. Now it's Bayfront Park Trust. That one is so there's two entities which are both in the district that I represent that are both good, I think, running well. Not to say that there isn't reform needed, there is. Not to say that there aren't things that could be done differently, or that there are line items that can come down in their budgets. There always is, but they both have processes for that. And residents should go through those processes. They're open to the public. They meet publicly. And I think any change like that that's dramatic and large should be well thought out, and the residents should be included in that change. People keep saying, well, they're not kings and queens. Well, if we're not kings and queens, how can we just abolish something? Well, let's just abolish this entity this morning. You know, that it shouldn't be that way. The residents should be part of that discussion and solution.
Of course. Well, as we move toward wrapping up today, this is, again, the end of Pride Month. And as one of the out and proud LGBTQ members of the Miami-Dade Democratic Party Executive Board, I want to echo what Commissioner Pardo said, that there are folks in Tallahassee who don't want us to say gay, don't want us to, they want us to be silent. And we absolutely cannot give them what they are asking for. They want us to go back to the closet and just go away and not be part of the world. Yeah. To which you and I say, no, where we've come too far. We're not going away. We're not going to be quiet. And this Pride Month and every day of the year, particularly right now with this administration, we have to be out, we have to be loud, and we have to defend every member of our community, trans folks in particular, who are
especially the kids.
Yes,
especially the kids. The kids, you know, it's important for the kids to know that when they hear this negativity, it's not really representative of the general population. I don't want kids feeling excluded and depressed because of the jargon of the politics behind it. Yeah. Kids should know that the world is totally different, and it's a great world today. The world I lived in, not to mention marriage, I couldn't even accept openly that I was attracted to another guy or even talk about it or go anywhere. There was nothing. I mean, today it's so much better. Things are good. You're going to be good. This is just a political cycle, and it too shall pass.
And they're using us as
That's
a
it.
wedge.
That's it.
You know, as though life isn't difficult enough to be gay, but especially trans.
Right. Right.
That's
absolutely right. And not unlike Hispanics, not unlike a lot of others that are thrown into this, Black Americans, a lot of people are being thrown into the exact same marginalization again.
Right. So to all of our listeners and viewers, happy Pride, and let's keep the fight going. I want to once again thank my friend Commissioner Damian Pardo for joining us today. It's been a thrill to have you. Take care, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you so much.